I didn't realize such a weird and embarrassing thing to admit, but my life was just wrapped up.
I didn't fully get the weirdness and, quite frankly, the embarrassment that came with the admission of this. However, my entire life was previously centered around Kody's requirements. Hi, friends. Welcome back to my channel. There is a common saying that I was frequently subjected to throughout my childhood. You don't know what you don't know. Perhaps you are familiar with it as well. Essentially, it says that there are things in the world of which we are utterly unaware. Because if nobody ever introduces a different opinion, then how would one even know there is one lacking? Now consider being raised in a world such as a fundamentalist cult, where as a child you're instructed that women are meant to share a husband. It's made to seem completely natural, just the way it's meant to be. You observe women fighting over the attention of one man, and you're instructed that that's the way to get to heaven. You're instructed that this is what God desires, that this is how you're meant to be a goddess in heaven, and that this is the key to experiencing the fullness of the gospel. People have their own definitions for some experiences. Things they did not even know were anomalous until later in life. For myself, I grew up in a family where parental physical punishment was just the norm. I really had no clue that that behavior was not normal for everyone. It wasn't until adulthood and meeting people who had not been brought up the same way that I learned, oh, not everyone got physically punished for messing up. This new information then created a whole different picture for me. I started researching the subject of healthier parenting, fueled by a desire not to pass on that trauma to my own kids. I made a vow. I will never physically punish my child. My children will grow up in a home where they feel safe, not afraid, nor forced to hide out of fear as I did. And that's when I really knew that saying, you don't know what you don't know. That wake-up call rearranged everything. My parenting, my values, my relationships, it changed my life. And I don't like the cop-out of parents just do the best they can, because sometimes they could have done better. They could have learned. Now I say all that to say, Christine Brown Woolley, now in her early 50s, is realizing that too. That kind of wake-up call where suddenly it all adds up and you realize the truth. And the crazy thing is, most of us who were watching Sister Wives knew this years ago. We knew it was bad. We saw what she was experiencing, but she didn't. She didn't know what she didn't know. Christine had never experienced anything other than the limitations of polygamy. She had never seen what a true partnership was. She grew up in a world where women were taught to serve, to obey, and to support a man whom she saw only every few days, if at all. And when she did see him, her entire existence was to center around him. He becomes the center of her existence because of his irregular visitation, which prevents him from being anything else. For years, Christine would make statements such as, our marriage is just like any other monogamous marriage, and we have the same problems, just multiplied by 4. I remember thinking about the reality of the fact that in life, it is not the same. Most monogamous marriages do not involve a husband splitting time among 4 different families. Such an arrangement is practically non-existent outside of polygamy. Today, Christine is having a conversation with Suki, and in it, she is finally relating her actual experiences. The reality is, when one takes trauma from childhood into adulthood and then finds oneself continuing to repeat the same patterns suffered through an upbringing, the process of escape can be exceedingly humiliating. There is a realization point where one thinks, how did I not see this? How did I get involved in this? But it ultimately boils down to the saying, you do not know what you do not know. Christine, for the first time ever, owns up to something enormous. She's embarrassed that she lived her life as a polygamist. Embarrassed. Just hear what she said. Even when Kody was not present, her brain was always working out what she needed to do for when he returned. It was not as if he just suddenly entered their life. No, everything needed to come to a halt and be rearranged to fit him in. And that is not a partnership. That is control. Think about the implications here. One is staying home by oneself, raising children, and then every fourth day, a man shows up, having spent days with other women, and one is expected to put aside all duties to suit him. This is not equality, nor is it love or even respect. Christine has finally realized this truth. Kody fathered children whom he hardly raised. He kept on fathering more children than he could love or rightfully care for. Rather than treating them as special people, he treated them as numbers. He made his wives fight for morsels of love. He never treated them as human beings. Over the course of this season, Kody himself confessed that his validation was the respect that he gained from his wives and children. He confessed that he felt like a god. The worst part of this is that he never had to grow up or change because the people around him had been trained to see him as the center of the universe. Yes, Kody does have some narcissistic tendencies, but let's get further. The culture that they grew up in creates narcissistic men. These men are raised being told they're better than women. They don't learn to love their wives. They learn it's the wife's responsibility to win her husband's love. Be sweeter, be quieter, don't rock the boat. Even Meri still says things like, you can only control yourself, which, yeah, on the surface level is true, but it gets warped. It becomes this toxic thing that you have to become someone different just to be loved by him. That's not healthy. That's manipulation masquerading as maturity. So when Christine is saying all of this now, when she is acknowledging how unequal it all was, it really does sound like she's in therapy. She's rehearsing it all, perhaps even contrasting her previous relationship with what she has now, and thinking, wow, how long did I last in that? She's waking up to the fact that everything in her life previously centered around Kody, and she's ashamed that she let it occur. She gave everything to him, her time, her energy, and her love. She built her whole life around him. In addition, when he was in her house, she treated him with the utmost respect. This translated into special dinners, special treatment, and special attention. With his children, however, Kody did not even try. In Mykelti's eyes, whenever he did spend time with them, it was always on his own terms. He would choose a movie of his choice, such as Gladiator or some fantasy film with wizards and dragons. And if the kids wanted to connect, they had to sit and suffer through his choice. He had no respect for their interests or tastes. It meant spending time with their dad and doing exactly what he wanted and nothing more. He did not show up for his daughter's events and barely bothered to show up for his son's unless it was for something he was interested in, such as wrestling or sports. Even then, he did it half-heartedly because he had so many kids he could not possibly give each one the attention it deserved. When a father does not try to learn about his children or invest in their interests, the message they learn to adopt early on is this: in order to connect with Dad, I have to just do what he wants. That is all. There is no individuality. No connection, just submission. And don't even get me started on the religious side of things. In this cult-like hierarchy, Kody is priesthood authority. He's not merely a husband. He's a god. His word is God's word. So picture trying to construct a marriage with someone whom you're also supposed to worship. That's not love. That's not respect. That's spiritual manipulation. They always said they were nothing like Warren Jeffs, but in reality, the only difference was that they didn't have to wear prairie dresses. The ideology, the same. The control, the same. Keep sweet, don't complain, and do what he wants. If he wants to get you pregnant, it's going to happen. If he comes over, it's going to go his way. And you better smile through it. So when Christine tells me that now she's embarrassed, I don't just hear embarrassment. I hear shame, and shame is heavy. But let's be completely clear. You should never be shamed for not knowing something, and you should never ever be shamed for the manner in which a person treated you. The question is, why did he believe that it was acceptable to treat you that way? Why was this amount of emotional abuse and neglect acceptable to him? What enabled him to have a belief system in which this kind of pain was acceptable? Kody grew up in the mainstream LDS church, which, yes, has origins in fundamentalist groups, but does not engage in polygamy. So he should have known better. He should have known polygamy was not the way. He should have known it was not acceptable to marry multiple women or to hurt them by constantly bringing new ones into the picture. But he did anyway. His parents converted to polygamy after he was an adult. He did not grow up in it. He fell into it willingly, and many of his siblings did not follow. They remained outside of it because they knew it was wrong. But Kody, he went the whole 9 yards. And why? Because being the center of attention, being worshipped, and having sex with multiple women stroked his ego. It gave him the control and validation he so clearly craved. A man who loves a woman with all his heart would never sign on to a belief system under which she must suffer. He would not sign on to a religion under which her suffering is part of the procedure. That is sheer cruelty. So when Christine does have these flashes of insight, I am truly relieved. It is clearly that she is healing. Also, if she is indeed going to therapy, as it clearly seems, it is clearly succeeding. But I do worry a little bit, just being real. When you escape something so controlling, there's a tendency to go way hard in the other direction. Like, I never got to have candy as a kid. Now I'm having sweets for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's just being human. I hope Christine does not overcorrect and become so independent that she shuts love out entirely. I think she's getting it though. She's finally learning what a real partnership looks like. Because let's be real, she did not have one before now, not with Kody. And that is the tragedy. To be in your 50s and to realize you spent your whole life orbiting one man, altering yourself, giving up your own happiness because you learned that's what a good wife does. That's tragic. And for a woman like Christine, who has always believed she was strong, I can only speculate at the conflict within. How did I let this happen? How did I accept a husband who slept around and I was okay with it? That's the conditioning, and it's not her fault.